Senator Booker.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Attorney General, I know there's been a lot of talk about grants. I hate to bring you through this again, but it's really important to my state. New Jersey is one of the top 4 donor states in America, which means our taxpayers, Americans, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, millions of people send more money down here than we get back in relative to all the other states in the nation except for 3 others. We've been talking a lot about different grants. I want to be very specific about Office of Justice Program grants. There were $35 million worth of grants that were approved in a bipartisan way in this committee, grants that invest in things that are really vital to the public safety of our community. I know, again, we are in a room full of people who want to see crime go down. Republicans and Democrats, law enforcement officers have spoken to the urgency of these programs which deal with school violence, which divert people into substance abuse and treatment and supportive services. Community violence intervention programs, again, bipartisan programs that this committee really worked hard on this. I've heard what you've said to others on the committee. I heard what you said to Patty Murray in an appropriations committee that members should reach out to you if they want those grants reinstated. I've written letters, but I am hoping that you and I can have a conversation. $35 million of frozen funding for public safety that the people of New Jersey, Democrats, Republicans, and Independents, really invested in those resources, those programs, and those nonprofits who were expecting those grants often made outlays and are now really in a lurch. Can we talk about those grants and the restoration of them, please?
Yeah, and Senator Booker, I had stated earlier that yes, we did terminate grants. We have an appeal process. We have turned some back on. We are appealing. We are looking at some. Some we have denied. Some are still pending. I believe we have multiple appeals pending with New Jersey, and I would be happy to sit down with you and look at those appeals. I believe one is with the city of New Jersey. I know there are multiple ones pending, but of course, I would be happy to sit down with you or any senator or any House member and look at grants that have been terminated. I've been doing that, and I would welcome that.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So that's kind of fascinating right there. I don't know if you guys picked up on that, where they're talking about some of these companies, these NGOs or whatever that receive these federal grants. They actually factor in the grant money into their outlays for their budgets. That's fascinating, don't you think? I love this. Look, I think it's a good idea that they came in and shut these grants down to see exactly who starts gnashing their teeth about this, and that's probably the people that don't need the grants, because it's a grant, folks. That's free money from the federal government. I love it, y'all. People start feeling entitled, and they're like, I need my grant money. Do you? Can we even afford these things, folks? But we're going to get into all this. So y'all do me that favor and smash that like button for me. Subscribe if you're new around here. Share this video anywhere and everywhere you can. Click that join button. Sign up, become a member. You know you want to. You need to. It helps this channel expand and grow. And we need to bring this community together, folks. So y'all do all that for me. And without any further ado, here is the rest of the story.
But I will be the first one you sit down with, correct?
Absolutely. I'd love to sit down with you on that. I'll look at those tomorrow, Senator Booker.
Thank you very much. I want to move on.
We have been restoring some grants.
I understand,
some have been denied, some have not.
At New Jersey, none have, and I really want to get to the bottom of that, and hoping that we can reinstate some of those grants. The second thing I want to move on to is that earlier this year, the Department of Justice charged Newark Mayor Ras Baraka after he sought access to Delaney Hall Detention Center to conduct oversight. The charges on their face, to many of us, especially in New Jersey, were clearly baseless. Many people say they're politically motivated. And then the judge, the federal judge, admonished the prosecutors for even bringing the case. This is the quote from the federal judge. Federal prosecutors serve a single paramount client, justice itself. Your role is not to secure convictions at all costs, nor to satisfy public clamor, nor to advance political agendas. The federal judge went on to call the charges embarrassing and a worrisome misstep. Mayor Baraka was arrested that day on the scene, and I know you understand this, to arrest a mayor of a major city on charges that were called by a federal judge embarrassing and a worrisome misstep is very concerning to me, and I think should be to the whole committee. A recently released video shows a federal agent telling fellow officers that the decision to arrest Baraka was, quote, per the Deputy Attorney General of the United States. And I'm assuming that person is Todd Blanche. This is evidence to me that this decision wasn't made by people on the ground in the field, but by Maine Justice, that they were directing an arrest from D.C. on the scene. And it leads to the conclusion that this was a political decision, that the decision to arrest was not made by the people who were there on the spot. And I can assume that you can see how that's problematic to me. So I have questions not about the case, but really about how the decisions to arrest and charge Baraka and now MacIver, Congresswoman MacIver, were really made. Before this committee, I am saying that I'm going to submit these questions for the record, and I'm really hoping that we can understand how those decisions, as our oversight, how we're making decisions, especially for high-level officials in my state, the mayor of our largest city, the congressperson of that city, and I'm hoping that you could respond to those letters on the record.
Yeah, and Senator, that matter is ongoing, and so I can't discuss it. As an attorney, you realize I can't discuss an ongoing matter.
And I respect that. I guess I just want to know, and we'll leave this for the questions for the record about the decisions on how they're being made, not the case in itself. I want to move on. And again, I've heard your testimony so far. I know that there is data about violent crime in this city, but I'm really concerned about the application of Justice Department resources towards the challenges we have. You and I both know that about 11,000 Americans have been killed by a firearm just this year. The Department of Justice, according to the White House's own documents, as well as that of the conservative think tank Cato, have shown that there has been a significant movement of law enforcement resources away from many other issues and into immigration enforcement. And we are seeing that in that immigration report, a lot of the people are not the violent criminals that we are really needing to rid our streets of. In total, according to the Cato Institute, you've reassigned 7,460 law enforcement away from their primary duties, investigating drug traffickers, prosecuting child pornography, targeting high-value white-collar criminals, and again, forcing them, this is according to the Cato Institute, into low-level immigration enforcement. This includes, in terms of gun violence, 1,778 agents from the ATF to this kind of immigration enforcement. The White House itself has said that they diverted 45% of all of agents in 25 FBI field offices to work on immigration full-time. As a person who worked very closely in my time as mayor with the New Jersey field office, that's really concerning given the other threats. But it doesn't end there. The DOJ has eliminated the Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force, the independent component of the DOJ whose job it was to combat transnational organized crime, dissolved the Community Relations Service, which in New Jersey has been invaluable over 60 years, responding to communities experiencing conflict or violence, and something that people on both sides of the aisle of this committee have really invested in. You all have rescinded VOCA and VAWA grants to support survivors of sexual assault and human trafficking. There seems to be a disconnect here between the application of the resources of the Justice Department on the things that are most concerning when it comes to crime and where they're being directed instead.
Senator Booker, first to OCDETF. The most important point is that the work of OCDETF is continuing. The executive office is being dissolved. We have said that, but the work of OCDETF is continuing. The resources that were previously provided to law enforcement organizations through OCDETF are now going directly to those organizations. I will assure you, no work will be sacrificed as a result of getting rid of the executive office of OCDETF. The agents and the attorneys are working with Homeland Security. They're all working together as a unit.
Okay, Attorney General Bondi, I'm running out of time, and I'm going to put some questions in QFRs, because again, this is conservative think tanks and others are pointing about literally over 1,000 people being taken off of things that I think would concern the public. I'd like to get that, but I also just want to quickly mention that for the record, I want to ask about the public corruption unit as well. We now have gone from a public integrity section that went from 36 full-time prosecutors to now only 2. And yet we know, Democrats and Republicans, there is a real problem with public corruption in our country. And we know that the DOJ has stopped enforcing the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, disbanded the Foreign Influence Task Force, dismissed the indictment against Trump donor Andrew Weidenhorn, cut back on white-collar investigations. My list goes on. I'm running out of time. But I will ask for the record against not only reassigning officers and prosecutorial resources from the other things I mentioned, but public corruption is really important. I want to talk about an area of bipartisanship on this committee, which is antitrust. This is a very bipartisan area. In June, the Antitrust Division finalized a proposed consent decree with Hewlett-Packard Enterprises and Juniper Networks, settling the DOJ's challenge to the company's $14 billion merger. Reportedly, your Chief of Staff, Chad Mizell, and Acting Deputy Attorney General Woodard overruled career antitrust staff and approved the merger. This is a massive area of concern for Americans writ large. This is an area where corporate power is growing, corporate concentration in our country is happening at great degree. I'm grateful that the ranking member with Mike Lee on a committee that is really trying to get into this disturbing trend. And the issues right now in the Justice Department, the resources being put on it, and the appearance of improprieties that we're seeing are troubling. All I want to ask as my final question is, would you commit, just to talk about antitrust, to coming before the Antitrust Subcommittee, led by Senator Lee, to discuss antitrust enforcement in our country?
We're over time. May I answer, Chairman?
Yes.
Senator Booker, I work hand in hand with Gail Slater. She is doing an incredible job. I said that earlier. I will let Gail Slater handle all matters with antitrust. The HP matter, Juniper, is a pending matter still because, as you know, it has to go before the courts, even after a decision has been made, and that's where it's pending right now. If I can go back to your previous 2 questions, first about our agents being reassigned. Our agents are working tirelessly on their day jobs and with Homeland Security. And right now, they're not getting paid. And they're on the streets during a government shutdown working to keep every city in this country safe, in New Jersey and in every state. They're working together with DHS on task forces, but they're also doing their core mission, and they're getting child predators off the street. They are working so hard with all the agencies hand in hand. That has not been sacrificed. And I'm so proud of the work that the FBI, DEA, ATF are doing. ATF agents have worked tirelessly. I am in constant contact with them on the incredible cases that they're making to keep our country safe and our world safe, especially our DEA agents who are stationed around this world, and now they're not getting paid. Back to the public integrity section, the last point you made. It has not been slashed. Those are going to the various U.S. attorney offices to be handled in each office around the country instead of one unit based in D.C.
Yeah.
Thank you, Senator.
Okay, so here we go with some more mainstream corporate press narrative BS, right? Talking about Ras Baraka, the mayor, I think, of Jersey City or one of those cities. I forget the name of the city right off. I forget what he's mayor of. But this was back, I think, 3 months ago or something like that when Rep. LaMonica McIver, they showed up, right? They were protesting an ICE facility, right? ICE is bringing in some dangerous, criminal, illegal aliens, bringing them in. These people are protesting. They're getting very rowdy, right? On the tipping point of going to a riot, as a matter of fact. These people show up wanting to do oversight while they're trying to bring in detainees. As a matter of fact, they're transporting detainees. These people show up, want to do oversight, blah, 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 blah. They get into the mix with these rowdy protesters, and things go awry. As a matter of fact, Ras Baraka, his charges were dropped. So instead, Senator Booker, instead of going to Ras Baraka and saying, hey, maybe you shouldn't have obstructed federal law enforcement, what does he do? He goes to Pam Bondi and says, I want to know why he was arrested. Oh, and guess what this federal judge said? This is embarrassing. Is it embarrassing, though? They actually dropped the charges on this dude, and they didn't have to do that. They could have kept those charges in place as a matter of fact and as a matter of law. to be factual, right? Now, Rep. LaMonica McIver, she's on video actually assaulting federal law enforcement. Notice he didn't really expound upon her too much, did he? No, he didn't, as a matter of fact. He more focused in on Ras Baraka. But Ras Baraka, as a matter of fact, was obstructing federal law enforcement. And man, you can't do that. Like, I've been talking about this for so long. You cannot get in their way when they are trying to conduct operations, right? They are transporting dangerous criminals, and you're trying to do oversight. These people didn't call ahead. They didn't notify they were coming. None of that, folks. They just showed up and said, we want to do oversight right now, while there's a freaking almost a riot going on. That's one of the most ridiculous things. And then they want to try to blame ICE for denying them. Yeah, they were denied at first. Like, come on, you can't do that. We've got a security issue in progress right now. It's currently underway. These people are rioting. We're bringing in dangerous prisoners. It was a whole spiel, right? It was a whole scene going on. And these people want to do, like, I noticed something he says. He says Ras Baraka shows up to do oversight. Well, hang on just a second. Oversight is performed mostly by Congress or the Inspector General's office, right? Not the mayor of a city. Look, this guy has no rights whatsoever to go in and demand oversight. He was there with LaMonica McIver. They did not have to let him in. They were merciful and allowed him to come in, right? And with the whole calling, sending it up the chain of command, essentially, to get the okay to arrest this guy on obstruction charges, as a matter of fact, right? Yes. You think one of these low-level guys is going to just arrest the mayor? No, they're going to okay that with the chief, if you will. We're going to call and see, because, hang on, this guy was kind of fighting with us and obstructing us, blah, 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 blah. Let me call again. Yeah, that's normal, folks. That there's nothing out of the norm for that. When you have high-profile individuals and they are actually, breaking the law, you could probably arrest them, but you don't want to get fired. So what do? You call the boss. You call your manager, supervisor, whatever that may be. You call them, hey, let's figure this thing out. Blah, 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 blah. I'm sure you guys get it. But Senator Booker doesn't want to go there. Senator Booker just wants to portray a narrative. That's all that's about, folks. And, let's shift gears a little bit, talking about these grants, what I was talking about at the beginning. Look, these grants, I think every administration, when they come in, they should absolutely freeze all grants and look at where these grants are going. Do you a basic investigation of the NGOs that are receiving the grants? I think that should be done at all times, right? Because there's a lot of NGOs out there, folks, like we found with USAID. These NGOs are supposed to be, giving out food aid and all this other nonsense. Well, come to find out, hang on, they were sending money back through other means back into the Democratic Party. When you follow the money, you find out, hang on just a second, there's some corruption going on here. And then, the corporate press, though, they get that narrative and they're like, oh, they're cutting off food aid, which was a lie. They were cutting off grants that were going to NGOs. That's what they were doing. There was never any evidence that those NGOs actually provided food aid to anywhere, right? Any food aid that was sent out by the United States was never stopped, folks. That food aid continued to go to wherever it went, right? But we look into these programs, we find all these gender programs and like LGBTQ parades being funded by your tax dollars, a gay theater, and it was a whole thing, like all kinds of nonsense lists. There was list after list after list. It was completely insane what was going on with USAID. And they wonder why we can't balance the budget. Maybe because we're giving out hundreds of billions of dollars in grants to NGOs that funnel that money back into the Democratic Party. How do you think the Democrats raise so many funds? I don't know, but they sure do raise a lot of money. They pretty much outspend Republicans on just about every single election, folks. I mean, look at this past presidential election. Kamala Harris spent had like 1.5 or 1.6 billion dollars for that campaign in 3 months. 1.6 billion dollars. I think Donald Trump was rivaling $1 billion, right? Of course, that's kind of, because Elon Musk injected $250 million himself. Yeah, I can see how he would get to that number. It's just an insane amount of money that's being pumped into politics, folks. And, the Supreme Court said it's okay. It is what it is. I don't like it all that much. I don't think it takes $1.6 billion to run a presidential campaign. It does cost a lot of money, though. You hear all these pundits talking about they want to get the money out of the politics. And, hey, look, I can't really disagree with that. But that's not really the root of all the corruption. It's not really the root of all the problems, is it? Because they do spend a lot of money on campaign stuff, if you will. And hey, look, it is what it is. They're trying to win an election. There is some corruption going on with that. But where I think personally from, watching Congress like a hawk for the past several years and kind of getting an inside eye, if you will, into what they do, I think the lobby interest, it's an entire industrial complex. The lobby industrial complex in Washington, D.C. and the surrounding areas is truly insane. Hundreds of billions of dollars a year industry that goes through lobbying. So I think that needs to be cut out, to be honest with you. I think these corporations, these large corporations, I think they should be barred from lobbying Congress. Because this is why, if you ever thought, how could your congressman vote for this? This is ridiculous. Why would they vote for this? That's why, folks, because these lobbies get in the ear of these congressmen, maybe shove some money under the table, and there you go, folks. This is how they can vote against your interests, and they do it consistently. So, once again, I think they should remove that. They should absolutely bar corporations, from lobbying Congress. Get rid of that. And bar congressmen from fundraising for anything other than their own campaigns. Right? Because that's what they do. They spend most of their time, like I always say, folks, it's fundraise, dinner with a lobbyist, fundraise, smoke a prostitute, dinner with a lobbyist, fundraise. That's all they do, folks. That's it. And they may squeeze in a vote here and there. Go vote on something. But for the vast majority, all of your legislation, that gets wrote up by staffers. Yeah, almost exclusively by staffers. Your congressmen, most of them do not work on any of this. They'll tell a staffer, look, I want you to write up something specifically for blah. We want to make sure candy canes are in stock at these stores, whatever it may be. We want to make sure that candy canes are supplied year round or something, whatever it may be. Anything ridiculous. That was just something I could think of right off the top of my head. But I think that needs to go, to be honest with you, because it's just absurd the amount of money that flows through Congress, y'all. It's corrupt. It's absolutely corrupt. And that's the point. That is the tip of the spear, if you will, that lobby interests. Right? People talk about term limits and all that. I think that's just a distraction, folks, because term limits isn't going to change anything. If you implement term limits, that's not going to do much. You have to have term limits for the staffers as well, because what they'll do is you'll have staffers running Congress, because ever so often you'll have new congressmen coming in and they don't know what's going on. So the staffers will be like, well, look, you got to go meet with this lobbyist. All this was set up for the previous congressman. You got to go do this. You got to fundraise this, blah, 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 blah. Because in case you didn't know, folks, like to get on any committee, to be in good standing, like if you were elected tomorrow, you show up, you get sworn in. First thing you do, they tell you right off the top, you're $250,000 in the hole. To be in good standing, you need to get out there and go fundraise. Your staffers will hook you up with who you can go and fundraise, but you must remove money from people. That's what you must do. Get them to open their wallets and give it to you. $250,000 just to be in good standing. You want to get on a committee? It's another $250,000 you got to go raise for the RNC or the DNC or whatever that may be. That's absurd, folks. That's obscene, as a matter of fact. It's disgusting, but that's what they do. That's how it's run. And I think that needs to stop. Absolutely. But I think I've rambled on for too long. So I want you guys to let me know what y'all think about all of this down in the comment section. Blows me away, y'all, every single day. But y'all do me that favor and smash that like button for me. Subscribe if you're new around here, and share this video anywhere and everywhere you can. Click the join button, sign up, become a member, because that really, really helps this channel expand and grow. And I would be deeply appreciative if you guys would do that for me. But I want you guys to remember one thing. God has a plan for everybody. You may not know what that plan is, but it's there, and I promise He loves each and every one of you out there. So y'all remember that. Try to have a good day and stay logical. Peace.